Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Noah Freeman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and today joined by a long-lost friend here of Steel City Underground, one Noah Freeman. Noah, what's going on, my friend?
Hey, my schedule has definitely cleared up, at least recently. I'm not like Zach Meckler doing the actual football thing, but I'm doing the thing that goes right with football. And marching band was all the past few months, and we're definitely been practicing just as much as the football team with practices up until 6 every day, Friday games, Saturday competition. So it's been a lot of stuff, but it's nice to go on winter break and everything and get back and talk about some Steelers football and also some positive Steelers football, at least on this episode.
Yeah, you know what? I had a comment with my cousin Brad, who never listens to this, but every now and then he shows up on Twitter, and I said, man, doesn't a win make everything better? And it was everything from like, yes, the whole week is better now. Mm-hmm. Everything's better. Christmas is better. Sex is better. Everything is better. And it's like, well, you don't know about that. I see the big wedding photo, still kind of newlywed there. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But anyways, that's the old Rodney Dangerfield type deal. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, the other Rodney Dangerfield get no respect, Brian, is traveling around for the holidays, and hopefully we'll have him back for a pregame. But definitely glad to have you back here because, number one, I don't want to be just talking about the bad officiating by myself.
Right.
I know you've got some strong opinions about it. In fact, hey, I tell you what, hold on. I got something here. I got something, Noah, and I got to put this on set here if I can do it. It's a little bit in the background, but I've got my Festivus poll already.
There it is.
Maybe a little early. Sorry for the people that are listening and not viewing, but, you know, there's not all the room in the world here in this. I can't get it all in the frame here, but this is my Festivus poll. For most of the people who are familiar with Seinfeld, it was George's dad, Frank Costanza's fake kind of holiday to rival all the other holidays going on, primarily Christmas. He found tinsel distracting, and he used to talk of feats of strength and also the airing of grievances. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of problems with you people, and by you people, I mean the referees, and that's where I'm going to go first with all of this, because this is where most of my ire and angst and everything else, you know, I was just replaying this here just a few moments before we went on. I was there, okay? I don't think anyone, they had about 60,000 there, 59 and change yesterday. And I don't think there's a person in the building that thought that that was a first down. Joe Haden making that tackle at the end of the game, dude didn't even cross the 10-yard line. And I'm rewatching this now. This is my first time watching this, actually, the TV replay. I heard a lot about it and everything, but Westbrook, I can't remember how he says his name. Guy I just had on with the Titans knew how to say his name properly. But
he's a Hoosier.
Yeah, I was going to say that. And boy, wouldn't that sting even worse? I don't know how that.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So, for those who forgot, Noah's the Indiana sports guy here. He's the other Big Ten flavor. Most of the people, I'd say, probably the majority of people tuning in to us, if you're local to, you know, the Pittsburgh area, it's probably Ohio State, Penn State when it comes to Big Ten, and then of course West Virginia too, as far as your college flavors or what you like, and of course Pitt. There's the Pitt people. You know, you got the split within the city there too, of course. But Big Ten, you're the other guy, and you've had some fun lately, but
not this year, but at least the previous 2 years.
Yeah, well, it helps to not always, you know, be a doormat. And I won't say that Ohio State season was fun losing to that university up north, but anyways, this play. I could not believe they moved the ball. And I was just tweeting out to someone just a bit ago, too, that my perspective from where I was, I'm kind of corner end zone. and I could see that the line judge opposite side of the field from the camera angle that they had on this initially anyways, it would have been the Titans side, I'm not sure where you're supposed to be positioned at there. If you're supposed to be positioned on the line to gain, then he's looking like kind of diagonal at this, and you can't do that. You can't do that. So from my own fall distractions that I had for many years, primarily college soccer, when you're officiating, your human eye can get a perfect kind of straight line. If you're lined up with something straight, the human eye is amazing at getting a straight line, 90-degree angle. The problem is when you're standing on the 9-yard line and you're looking at like the 11-ish, and as you keep going further out, of course, if it's right up in front of your face, you're going to have tunnel vision. You're not going to get that. But if it's on the far side of the field, you could be off by as many as 3 yards. That's just the optics of it. It's an optical illusion. I don't want to give the referees a pass because I felt that this crew was pretty terrible in general. I don't even know who these people were. I have a lot of problems with you people, but I'm not going to give them a pass on a lot of other stuff that went on in this game. But this one was pretty much excusable when you're talking about the integrity of these games and trying to say that the officials do this or do that and they do well and they get graded. No, that's all out the window. Like anybody and their brother. The fact that they even brought the chains out to measure this, and then that spot,
right?
they just stood there, and it's quite amazing because I'm watching the TV replay. You don't get just the same dead air that you get being in the stadium. You're not getting like a whole ton of replays or anything that's going on. You're watching these buffoons just stand there and nobody's making any signal, which is the same thing that just happened on the previous Ben Roethlisberger sneaks it twice, right? Najee goes to go. No signals. They're just standing there with their hands in their pockets. It was just mind-blowing to me. And I knew for a fact he didn't even get to the 10. What was your observations? That was me. I mean, everybody in the stadium was like, this is crap.
Oh, yeah. I mean, live, because you obviously have to talk about it when you see it for the very first time live, since that's how the referees did it versus replay. I totally agree, especially because where they were at the end of the field, the camera that they give for the TV is also at a diagonal, so it makes it look like the ball might be a couple of feet closer to that side of the end zone, which would, at least from our view, look like it might be closer to a first down than it actually was for the TV angles. And I didn't even think that when he first hit it. And we're going to talk about the brilliance of how Joe Haden even made this play happen, first of all. But then when I was like, all right, I guess with that terrible spot, you got to bring out the chain, since where they did spotted it was super close. And once they put the chains down, I was like, I also thought they should have given it to the Titans with where that spot was and where they put the chains. And then it just baffled me that they didn't even give them the first down and they just gave it to the Steelers. And then it was like, I thought it was also really funny that the Titans players were all like, once they said like Steelers ball going that way, all the Titans players were like, wait, no. And all of them were trying to go around to the ball and check themselves. It's like, no, it's like it actually was a first down. And then they finally got to review it, and it was like, he was a whole yard off. He only got to the 10.5-yard line when the first down was the 9.5-yard line, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah, he never crossed the 10, and that's kind of my point. You made the perfect comment there. You're looking at a diagonal. You can't look at a diagonal, and that has been my problem with the TV camera angles. I think the TV
at the goal line too. It was like, gosh,
the TV isn't going to get most of those right down the line for the most part, because if they're at the 50-yard line. Sometimes you have this cart, it might move, but it's not always following, I think, perfectly on the line of scrimmage. It's not that perfect, 90-degree perpendicular type angle, if I'm using the right terminology here, but I think you get my gist. It's not a straight line. It's a diagonal line, and it's not going straight across the field the way it's lined on the actual gridiron. It drives me absolutely crazy. At least they had that pylon camera, which took forever when I'm watching the TV replay to pull that one out. That was the most decisive one. But you're actually pretty fortunate that Joe Haden makes his tackle short of the 10 going towards the 9. You could see the ball doesn't cross the 10 because the 10-yard line, every 10 yards, you've got the line that goes straight across the field or whatever instead of the hashes. If this was somewhere in the hashes, God forbid, and they tried to let him, and they were going to let him run a play too. That's the thing that gets me. They get right up to the line, and it's like,
and then they blow a whistle.
Yeah, I think they were in. Like I said, I wasn't familiar with this referee crew. I got to find even what the guy's name was, but let's see here. This was Brad Rogers. Well, I actually think has been around a little bit, but you don't see him as often. And it just felt to me like the entire crew was kind of. They were caught up. They get caught up in the emotion too. You got to run down the field. You're in a rush. You're in a hurry. Those type of things. If you think about it, if you ever competed in any type of sports, athletics, you get tired. You get fatigued. That starts to mess with you mentally too. It happens to the referees as well. And this isn't still trying to give them a pass. I don't know that they've been in these type of positions with experience to know I have to be here and I have to be prepared for this. And this is what you end up getting. I don't know that there's any way that you fix that as far as refereeing. Now, I don't want to take the whole show just talking about refereeing, but there's a couple of spots in this game. I mean, TJ Watt it was pretty much just hold the guy and see if they throw a flag. Ben Stonium put out a great video with the Titanic. He's getting double-belled and they'll let go Jack or whatever the thing was. I'm the king of the world type thing. They put him on the boat, getting held by the two Titans players. And it wasn't
great videos. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a spot in the game where Ben Roethlisberger pitches the ball to Najee Harris, and there's about a good 2-3 steps from the defender that just comes in and puts Ben on his ass. And you're like, where is the flag for that? It's just the most ridiculous stuff. So why don't we cover this? 19-13, Steelers are still alive.
Can we talk about Joe Haden, though, first before we go on with that? I mean, that was such a brilliant tackle by Joe Haden to not even give Nick Westbrook the opportunity to even reach across. The position of where he wrapped him up in the middle of his body, both side to side and up and down, where his body, the momentum of his body couldn't go forward, and in addition to where he hit him right into the hands so that his arms couldn't reach out and get it even close, and then have to see where those refs would have gone if it was even a sliver close. Because if he even got past the 10-yard line, I don't think there's any way you could reverse it just with how irrefutable evidence you need and et cetera, et cetera. And then he just drove him back, and the positioning that he put him in there's just no question, and it was just a brilliant tackle in a split-second decision. And that's the kind of thing that when we were going to talk about this game overall, it's amazing what happens, and I'm saying this very sarcastically, when you actually have all of your players back and playing. With someone like Joe Haden, you see the last couple of games, how some of the defense has gone. It's like it does make a difference when you have someone like Joe Haden out on the field versus on the sidelines.
Absolutely. I was going there, by the way. So this is very good to the segue of saying some game balls because Joe Haden, and he didn't play the full game either. Mike Tomlin had a lot of rotation here, which is going to be interesting going forward because it seems like they have some guys that have some experience now that they could put on the field and even in some cases make some plays. Whereas, now you don't have to run the wheels off of Joe, who's just coming back from the foot injury, the game time decision, had missed, 4 or 5 games. Steelers had actually lost something and now they're 8 of the last 10. But until that Ravens game, I don't think they have won a game with Joe Haden out of the lineup. So you see how important he is. And definitely, 32 years of age now?
Yeah.
He's up there as a corner, but that is I'm not going to say that somebody else doesn't make that play, but that is a veteran experienced move where he not only understands where the line of gain is, but he understands where the ball is, just as you said, and there's no way in hell he's letting anybody get past him. If he doesn't fully make that tackle on his own, Terrell Edmonds is coming in. I think Trey Norwood's coming in. Then they're going to gang tackle, and he's still not going to get the line of gain. He's like a brick wall there. So I think he understood at least that. But momentum-wise, we had seen the Titans get a couple of first downs in some situations where it's like, geez, oh man, it's like a second effort, or the guy ends up, he's not completely on the ground, he's laying on a body and stretches over and gets those few extra inches, and it was just so nerve-wracking throughout the game. But Joe plays 27 of the 80 defensive snaps. He only plays 34% of the game, believe it or not, and he's in at the opportune time. They gave some decent breathers to a few different guys. The 100% participation players were Minkah Fitzpatrick and Terrell Edmonds. And that's a game ball, I think, or close to it. The whole defense pitched a shutout in the second half, which I don't think anybody was anticipating. You had some really good performances. Edmonds, there was a series there where he was involved, I think, in all 3 plays, making some pretty big plays. Tight end still not doing a real big deal. It's going to be more of something I'm going to talk about with the Chiefs to see if they could just match him up, because they were using him. They were playing some base 3-4, particularly near the end of the game, trying to stop the run. And there would be a situation where Edmonds is kicking over, almost playing in the slot, covering a tight end. And I think he had done a pretty solid job. Obviously, TJ Watt is still the man. There's no way around it. Ahkello Witherspoon has given them some options. They actually used Witherspoon and Hayden on the outsides and kicked Sutton on the inside. And some of these DB heavy packages that they went to, maybe in a third down situation, now feature Trey Norwood and Marcus Allen. They've even brought Miles Killebrew out. So they're mixing some bodies out there. Some guys get dinged throughout the game and things of that nature, but they've been using Allen in lieu of, let's say, Devin Bush, Joe Schobert. And I think we even had Stan Savran turn around and say, hey, I've been the biggest critic of Devin Bush all season. He had a pretty good game today. We would have liked him to hold on to the one interception.
Right.
But you think about the inside linebackers and the criticism. Joe Schobert comes out with an interception off of a tip drill from Taco Charlton, of all people, who comes in there. This guy was out of the league. He may be working himself into at least a situational role with the Steelers here and in the future. So my hat's off to the defense. I'm not sure. We got any other individual performances? We could always bring up Cam Hayward, and we could bring up TJ again, of course.
I just think you're right. There's not one standout game ball, grown-ass man performance like maybe some of the previous games. We could probably still give it to TJ now getting the single-season sack for the Steelers. But the comfortability that the defense started to have when you've got you've got Joe Haden out in the secondary. You've got the defensive line injuries that have been ongoing throughout the entire season with, of course, Tuitt not here the entire time, Alu basically the entire time, TJ coming in and out. It's where was those the middle of the defense, some of those middle linebackers, inside linebackers were the only ones that had stayed relatively healthy the entire time, and they were the ones that have been getting picked on just because of maybe the defensive line has been letting in way more runs than possible, and all of those offensive line have gotten to the secondary, or those secondary positions have given up a lot of big pass plays, et cetera, et cetera. It's nice to finally see the secondary have all of their players at least enough to where Joe Haden can give those other guys enough rest so they don't have to play the entire game, because that's where you saw some of those big plays happen against the Vikings and the Chargers, where the Steelers had that comeback, but that extra touchdown by the end of both of those teams put it out of reach. And then it just shored up the secondary, shored up those middle guys, which helped those take some of the pressure off of the front guys. And it was just a lot better. And you can see the scores where you got, since the Chargers game, Chargers scored 41, Bengals scored 41. The Ravens are never going to put up a lot against the Steelers, same vice versa. And then you got the Vikings scoring 36, and then finally you get the Titans only scoring 13 points when they're the healthiest they've been in a little bit. And healthiest is very relative compared to all the way to the very beginning of the season. But it's just they're playing a lot more team ball, which is really nice to see, and like you said, which led to a shutout in the second half and that comeback.
That's kind of crazy. There was a graphic that went up that Julio Jones was not returning to the game, and I was like, wait, Julio Jones was playing?
Right, yeah.
I looked up, he had 30-some snaps. He had 30-some% of the game, almost the same as Joe Haden, but You didn't even know he was out there. He was only targeted one time. He didn't even have a catch. And the pass defense was pretty solid. Tannehill was 23 of 32. He was completing them, but quite a few of them to guys like Deonte Foreman and Jeremy McNichols. The little bit of dump offs here. Ferkser. It wasn't like just. I get it. He doesn't have number one. He doesn't have AJ Brown out there. That's a pretty big deal. And
yeah, it is.
Didn't have Derrick Henry, which is obviously I'm not going to cry about that myself. But the Steelers stay within some of this, and I know there's still some naysayers that are out there. But with the NFL. Let's see. The NFL posted with 5 games remaining in Week 15, there were 28 teams still in contention for the Super Bowl. And that's the record for the most teams still in contention with 3 weeks left to play is 27. So with 3 weeks left, we'll see what ends up happening because if these teams still stay in, it's going to be a record. There's only 4 teams. I'm going to guess off the top of my head that they're the Texans, the Jaguars, the Jets, and I'm missing
almost there.
I'm sorry.
One more.
Well, who's the other one that I'm missing?
They just got a big win yesterday.
The Lions, yeah.
There it is. Yep.
Oh, you want to talk about anything can happen in the NFL? Oh my goodness!
Right.
It's funny because some people were talking about ways. A lot of people were into the Steelers. Why are the Steelers favored by a point at home or whatever? And obviously the Broncos were favored, and they lose Teddy Bridgewater, and you hope he's okay, stretchered out. But the Bengals end up pulling off. That game was real close. The Packers and Ravens was closer than I would have liked it to have been.
Yeah,
but the Ravens go from 1 seed within a couple weeks, and now down and out.
They're out of the playoffs right now.
Yeah, they're out. And the top 3 teams looking in right now are all the AFC North teams. The Ravens, the Browns yet to play on this rescheduled game, and then the Steelers. So there's still a pathway there. Am I saying it's entirely possible? It would have been nice if they had that win with the Lions. Then that changes a lot of things, changes a lot of tiebreakers, or perhaps they pull out one of the other victories, maybe Vikings or the Chargers.
Well, they'd be in the playoffs because they'd have the tiebreaker against the Ravens and the Bills, so technically they would have that last playoff spot.
Yeah, and I know I've always been saying this because the tie messes up a lot of things. So I'm always thinking in terms of head to head and things like that too. So the tie really screws up a lot of that. So does 17 games now. But anyways, more to this 19-13. This is an AFC conference win, and this also knocks the Titans around a little bit too, to where nothing's a sure thing for them. I mean, they're 9-5. The Steelers
Colts are 1 game behind them now.
Colts are right on the heels too, and there's things that could change and move around here. And it's not as if anyone in the AFC North has a cupcake schedule going forward either. So in the teams ahead of the Steelers, they've got 3 of them if you count the Chiefs, but I'm not really counting the Chiefs as ahead of them. I'm primarily looking at the Browns and the Ravens.
Yeah, because everyone's within a game of each other, so it's really going to come down to the Chiefs game is almost a moot point just because everyone is literally all 4 teams are within 1 game of each other. So it's really going to come down to those last 2 games that are you got to win them if you're going to get in, even if it's not winning the division, but you got to win both of those games to just get ahead of the other people, like you said, the AFC North being the first 3 out.
Yep, and I guess we got one more historical note here. I mean, we mentioned that T.J. Watt surpassed James Harrison's single-season franchise sack record, and James Harrison sent him a thank you, which was very, very nice of him to do. And then Ben Roethlisberger surpassed Phillip Rivers, so he is now 5th most in passing yards in NFL history, which is hard to believe because he threw for 148. The Steelers, I don't even think the Steelers had 200 yards of offense, 168 net yards on 45 offensive plays. They were almost doubled up in time of possession, 39.08 to their 20.52, which is absolutely nuts when you think about this. It was all the defense stepping up, creating the splash plays and turnovers, one of which was a phantom fumble somewhere with Cam Hayward that we're all like, wait, what? It's hilarious. Sometimes I have the radio earpiece in too, so I'm listening to Bill Hillgrove and Craig Wolfley. And they're both saying the same thing. They're up in the press box, and they're like, well, we didn't see anything either. And I'm just like, I'm here. I'm like, what the heck happened? I'm pretty sure that he was down. And for whatever reason, they weren't showing a lot of replays in the stadium. I have a feeling it has a lot to do with Mike Vrabel and his tendency to throw the red hanky. So let's see. We didn't actually do any game balls on offense. I'm not even sure who I got to really give a lot to here besides maybe Ben. I mean, he didn't have any major performance here from Najee Harris, 12 for 18. They didn't get him going. Pre-game wise, we said that defensive line was going to be pretty rough to run against to begin with. Their secondary was more not only banged up but suspect, and maybe they'd have more success passing the ball. There were a couple spots where they tried to run, they even ran it 2 or 3 times in a row, and it just didn't turn out. There were no big receiving games. I mean, Deonte Johnson, 5 for 38. Pat Freiermuth, who's now maybe in the concussion protocol, I assume, 4 for 37. So hopefully he'll be okay. From all indications, I hear that he will. Let's jump into this. Yeah, let's jump in. Oh, I got one that I want to take away, though. And I think we'll get to it pretty quickly here because we'll be talking about punts. First 4 Steelers possessions are punts, followed by a field goal and a missed field goal. And we'll talk about the end of the half here because you were mentioning this too when we were talking in the back rooms. It just didn't feel like a good game because it's like 4 plays for 18 yards, 3 for 4, 3 for a -4, and then 4 for 22, 5 for 23. They got one off of the fumble and get a good field position. But the Titans, and the reason this looks like the way it does a lot of times is because the offense is going like 3 and out, 4 and out. They're maintaining these possessions that eat up like all of, well, we talked about time of possession, minute 37, minute 6, minute 34, minute 55. The defense is coming right back. And then you talk about the starting line of scrimmage. Tennessee start on their own 30. They start on the Steelers 25, their own 47, right in the middle of the field. And then like the rest of the game was like 15, their own 15, 22, 25, 20, 25, and 25 4 straight times. And that changes the script from over to punt, fumble, interception, fumble, and turnover on downs. A lot different story with the game based on the field position. But Presley Harvin, man, 27-yard punt to start this off. Luckily, the defense doesn't get killed there. They have a 51-yard punt, and then there's an illegal block above the waist, which, with this 55-yard return, I thought I saw at least one block in the back.
Oh, yeah.
And that was completely botched by these referees. I'm like,
and the one they called on the Steelers, too, was he got his shoulders. He didn't touch his back either. They didn't show any replays besides just the
illegal block above the waist, which I guess could be construed as however you want to take it. So that huge return is the one that got them right on the Steelers 25. They run 6 plays and 25 yards and get a touchdown. It's like, what else are you supposed to do? It would be nice, though, these third downs, like I said, they had them at 3rd and 8, couldn't hold them. Steelers get the ball back, 3 and out. Ben Roethlisberger ends up getting sacked. This was 4th and 14, and Presley Harvin pooches this one 32 yards. I'm not sure what is going on with our guy, but it's a short leash. Kickers are a very short-lived profession in the NFL. I don't know. I wonder if we'd have to go back and look. I wonder if he had droughts like this in college, which I kind of doubt with all of the accolades he got through college. So this must be something brand new to him that he's got to work through. You know, I don't know if it was Stan or Charlie Batch, Stan Savern on a post game that said they were talking about maybe cold weather. I mean, he played at Georgia Tech, kind of
very true
weather place.
Yeah,
I mean that's it changes. The ball's a rock now.
Yeah,
when you're up here,
literally.
When you're up here, yeah. I mean, the cold weather. I mean, think about the tires for your car. You know what I mean? How the air pressure changes. So definitely, there's some truth to that. It's not as soft of a ball to kick, and maybe he's not. Maybe he needs to be in a dome like Jordan Berry. So everybody else now that wanted him gone is like, hey, why don't you get rid of this guy? And you're just like, yeah. So, can't make. I don't know how some people could live flip-flopping like a fish out of water, but they do. I I couldn't do that. I can't do that. I change my mind sometimes. I'll admit I'm wrong at least, but some people are just like, nah, I never wanted to get rid of that guy. I'd get out of town.
Right. James Conner, Jordan Berry, like your last podcast. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on the Conner thing again. It's just nothing against Conner. I still think he would have been a fine player, but you can't take that risk of retaining him and then not getting another running back. And then if you draft a running back high and then he's not playing, or he's splitting time, then everyone's criticizing you for not taking linemen or something. It's a damned if you do, damned
wasting
if you
a
don't.
pick. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Tennessee goes up 10-0, 11 plays, 45 yards, almost 5-minute drive, but it was like 13 minutes, 47 seconds elapsed in real time that defense had to stay out there, which was kind of rough. This was the one where it's at the end of the half, and Mike Tomlin probably has an opportunity. There's a couple of opportunities here to maybe not let let me see. I'm still in the first quarter. I'm sorry. We're getting there. So we get through the second quarter. Presley Harvin with another 40-yard punt. That's what I wanted to talk about first. And then there was the fumble that was knocked out by Arthur Millette. There's another guy we didn't mention. Like all kind of bodies in the secondary now. You went from Yeah, he went from James Pierre being completely benched, and now all of a sudden it's like they figured it out. Justin Lane was out there some before, too. Those two guys you don't hear from anymore. And it helps to have Hayden back, of course, from injury. But Minka, always around the ball, smells it, gets it. Steelers can't do much with this. They get down to the 24, 1st and 10, and then Chooks gets a false start, puts them in a 1st and 15. Najee can't gain anything. They find Pat Freiermuth. Ben goes deep for Ray McLeod. I'm like, man, you're on the 18, 3rd and 4. Can we just get a set of new downs? I mean, you're so accustomed to throwing the ball short. Why aren't you just going short here? You're trying to fool everyone. And then sometimes that's the thing. And there's going to be there's the drunk guys that are behind me. Somebody else said they're like, this is what I hear during the games, by the way. Joey Porter's on the sideline. Send him in there. Maybe he could stop something. I'm like, Joey Porter hasn't been on the sideline in years. It's been like 3 years since Joey Porter has been a linebackers coach. He kind of got in trouble at clubbing or something again. And, and they were like, well, this guy's not going to be back. But this is where maybe Matt Canada calls a play like this, but it's also Ben making the reads, taking shots. I think sometimes guys are trying to be a hero too much in these games. James Washington gets away with not fumbling on roughing the passer call that was finally called. There was the other one, like I said, that wasn't, where, Ben pitches it to Najee and you got someone stepping through about 3 times. But anyways, Boswell kicks a 36-yarder. You get this incredibly long 10-minute, 17 second, 19 plays, 64 yards, almost 15 minutes of real time, where the Titans get the ball with 10:30 on the clock and run it all the way down to 21 seconds by the time Randy Bullock kicks a 32-yard field goal. No timeouts taken here. You're thinking Mike Tomlin might be able to use a timeout or two in this instance where it's 2nd and 9 on the Steelers' 9, 3rd and 4 on the 4. Tannehill ends up getting sacked. Combination of 2 grown-ass men with Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt saved the day. Tomlin finally uses the timeout there. It's 21 seconds. Then the field goal is kicked. They get the ball with 12 seconds to operate. And there's 2 schools of thought here. There's some people who are just like, Tomlin don't know what he's doing. He's an awful coach. He's never prepared. Just like Bill Belichick. So, man, I'm very un-Bill-like for special teams punts to get blocked and to get beat by a running game and every other thing that happened against the Colts.
Oh, yeah.
And don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? Don't want to hear it. Oh, he played on the road. Maybe, he's bad on the road. You know what I mean? I understand. He has the hardware to back it up, but it's just funny seeing the comments from people.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, Tomlin with the timeouts. Two schools of thought here. So I'll cover the one is obviously I think Tomlin thinks if he uses the timeouts here, he's going to give Mike Vrabel and company more time. They're going to figure out a way to score. Maybe they'll be more aggressive on 4th down or something and end up getting it. That sack obviously changed things, but we're talking 3rd and 4 from the 4. You call a timeout there. Maybe they get close. Maybe they have a full minute. They figure everything out. Maybe they go for it on 4th down. Instead, this goes to a field goal, but you also shoot yourself in the foot too, because now you don't have any time when you get the ball back and you're kicking off to start the 3rd quarter.
Yeah, it was a little So originally, I thought that after all that time had gone by, I'm like, maybe they just want to get into the half without like giving the ball up or giving the Titans an opportunity to score again. Because once the Titans got into 1st and goal, that was where you play the clock game if you're going to try and do something after they score. And they could have called, technically, the Steelers could have had as much as a minute and 40, minute and 30 left for the entire half. We could call a timeout right after the Titans get a first down. That was about a minute and 50 roughly. I'm just going off of memory. Then they probably would have run it a couple times, so you probably would subtract 40-ish seconds, but they did an incomplete pass, and then timeout would have been all the way to 4th down, and they could have had roughly a minute 20, minute 15 or something left for the entire half. And so that's what I think some people on Twitter were also being like, it's like, I guess they were trying to just run it down, but then it just didn't make sense when they had 20 seconds left, and then they tried to make something happen. So their school of thought probably changed mid end of Titans drive, basically, because that didn't make a lot of sense even for a very well-established head coach. It's like something was going through their mind that it's not as cut and dry as just like, oh, I forgot I could use a timeout. It just doesn't quite happen like that.
Well, here's another thing. Regardless, you give up a score, either direction, field goal or touchdown, and maybe you give them more time, you're giving them a touchdown. Maybe you're trying to play the clock game, run it out, hope to get something there. Understand the Titans still had, I think they had all their timeouts. Yeah, they had all their timeouts at this point too. But the Steelers had gone, let's review. Punt, field goal on the short field. They hadn't been doing anything. 4 plays, 3, 4, 5 on the field goal play. They get the ball back. That's pretty amazing. They move the ball 40 yards, 4 plays in 18 seconds.
Yeah.
And they give Boswell a chance. Now, if he had just a little bit more time, I really thought maybe on 2nd down, maybe it's a minute 14, by the way, was what was on the clock. And it runs from 2nd down, a minute 14 down to 32. I mean, that's double the amount of time there. Mm-hmm. And they're going to get a little bit here on the sack, but you use a timeout anyways. I still think you have about 40-ish. You're in the right ballpark, 40-ish, 50 seconds, maybe. And then you get Boswell a little closer. Maybe you score a touchdown. I don't know. But they were also thinking, what if we go 3 and out? And the Titans have 3 timeouts, and they burn a timeout on each of these, and they get the ball back with 40 seconds. Our punter is kicking these things 25, 30 yards. They get the ball in the middle of the field or something crazy, and then they could score again. And then they get the
one completed pass, field goal, boom. Yeah.
It's definitely, I'm going to say, Mike Tomlin says he doesn't live in his fears. You almost got to there. It's the only way I could sympathize with it. Now, the other half of it is, of course, everyone else is in the post game, and they ask him this in the presser, and they're like, "Yeah, that's a BS response." And it's either he forgot he had him in his back pocket, or it's very deliberate. There was something going on there that kind of stunk, and you don't get to keep them when the half ends. So,
nope.
Kind of like your bank account, you die, you don't get to take it with you. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And everybody's going to
say,
not
basketball rules.
Yeah, you're defending Mike Tomlin. You're a Tomlin apologist. No, I do. Let me get my point across straight and clear. I do believe he should have burned the timeout at least on 2nd down there. You got down to about a minute. I don't know that you use it on the flip side of the 2-minute warning where, let me see, where do they have the ball at in there? It's 3rd and 7. The Steelers 15 at that point. They don't stop them there. I think if they do stop them, there was an 11-yard gain here to Andy Ferkser, and it goes 1st down and goal from the 4. And if they stop them there instead, I think you burn a timeout, and then you've got about a minute and a half when Randy Bullock gets to try a field goal. So on the other end of this, you get to the 3rd quarter, the defense actually does a pretty nice job here. It wasn't necessarily a 3 and out, but there was a 2nd down and 9 where Tennessee loses 4 yards. Terrell Edmonds is in on this play, as is Alex Highsmith. And the Steelers have to burn a timeout entering 3rd and 13. And everybody's out of their absolute mind after what just happened. I like this call by Mike Tomlin to say, look, I'm going to make sure we get these guys off the field, because at this point, you ain't got much of anything going on. It's 13-3. It's still a close game. You're trying to play the survival game, and you survive by making sure you have the right personnel. Your defense that was just out there for 10 minutes before they get a little halftime breather, make sure everyone is fresh, ready to go. You got the right substitutions in, because you don't want Derek Tuska or Taco Charlton out there necessarily, or maybe you don't want Witherspoon out there. You want Hayden out there. You get the right personnel on the field. I don't have a problem with that one.
Yeah, I agree. It was initially when you heard a timeout happen at the very beginning and you're down by 10 and the Steelers have literally not been able to do, 18 yards was the longest drive that they had the entire first half. And the Titans weren't getting their 6th drive of the entire game at the beginning of the second quarter. It was frustrating because it's like, all right, this is going to feel like the Chargers game, the Vikings game, where they're going to have to use all those timeouts at the very end to try and come back because the score is going to be 20, 25 points or whatever. And that was where the frustration. But then you're right, after they just kind of gather themselves, figure out the players, the resting, so that they could feel more fresh. They ended up getting a punt, and right after, which you're about to get into, right after the Steelers do another 3 and out for 1 yard, then it's off to the races. It was a completely different game.
Yeah, Harvin actually gets a nice punt off after that one. But I want to say, back before the timeout, Tannehill, he's not a spring chicken here. He's a veteran player. He was getting those guys up to the line pretty quick too, and to not allow them to sub. So there's some shenanigans like that go on as well. Yeah, the 3 and out, disappointing because Ben Roethlisberger sacked by Bud Dupree. First game back from him coming off of injured reserve. Yeah. They lose 9 yards. You have an offside penalty where Ben just kind of heaves one deep trying to catch Chase Claypool, and there's nothing there. And then nothing else. He misses Claypool on a small screen pass here. It hits him right in the hands. It's one of those ones where you could tell as soon as the ball's coming, he has his hands set, and he looks upfield, I believe to his left, and then looks back, and the ball's like on the ground, and it's like, and everybody's going to be all over him because of all the, I guess, controversy. I don't even think it's really controversy, but, everybody's complaining about Chase Claypool, and then they're just going to rag on this guy here. And there were some boo birds directed towards the Steelers at different points, but I want to say the boo birds were just as bad for a lot of the calls or missed calls in this game at some point as well.
Yeah, especially as the game got on. Yeah, I agree.
Here's one I think they miss, is this 49-yard punt. How did James Pierre not get flagged? How did he not get flagged? Well, this is like on this punt return, it seemed like there was like no margin for error, whatsoever. I mean, am I looking at this crazy? Because I didn't get to replay this one.
They didn't really show replay. They showed it once, maybe twice, but it was super bang bang. It was. I don't know if I would have thrown a flag there just because it was so close that it was like, I mean, the way the refs have been throwing the flag for like jumping off sides for field goals, where it's just like, oh, he was literally the exact second that the ball was snapped, it has to be a false start. I would have, or a defense going off sides, that they would have probably thrown the flag for that, but it was surprising that it was just the other way around, that they gave him the benefit of the doubt that he actually hit him at the literal second that he touched the ball.
Yeah, that don't ever happen. And that was Chester Rogers, by the way. I wasn't sure that he had enough space for that catch. So anyways, Steelers defense, they give up a 3-yard run and then a 10-yard run. And all of a sudden it's Terrell Edmonds almost gets a pick off a helmet here. Not the best throw by Ryan Tannehill going deep for Hollister. He goes over again now on 2nd and 10 over for a screen pass for Rodgers, and Terrell Edmonds comes out and stops it, reads it the whole way. It's a loss of 3. TJ Watt ends up getting his sack record here on 3rd and 13 and drops Ryan Tannehill. Man, and then Kern, who's always been a good punter, 54 yards, and you're just like, geez, oh man, what's going to go on here? But 8 plays, 63 yards, Steelers on the board. They finally get all the way down. They had a little bit of help here because first of all, you had offsetting penalties. Trey Turner gets tagged, an absolutely bad hold by him. No doubt about it. It was definitely a hold. But then you have the pass interference.
Ripped him down.
Yeah, pass interference with Deonte and Buster Screen, who I've never been a fan of Screen, going back to his Browns days. You get a little jet sweep motion here. Freiermuth gets hurt on this play. You're just like, man, can we make this bleeding stop? But there was the unnecessary roughness penalty that comes out of this, which I wasn't actually sure they were going to call. 15 yards, aids them a little bit. You get another DPI call. Chase Claypool absolutely mugged. I think these ones were right on the money here. You get down to the Tennessee, you're down to the 1 yard line because of the pass interference call. Najee can't get in, no gain. Ben doesn't get in, and then finally Ben's there, and everybody's waiting for the hands to go up. 13-10, Steelers got some life. They're only down by 3 points here. The phantom Cam Hayward fumble occurs here that was aforementioned, followed by, let's see, this is the Cam Sutton forced fumble that pops up, and Joe Haden ends up coming up with the ball. So the Titans were playing very sloppy at the end of this quarter. They're only up with a 3-point advantage as they get to the fourth quarter. Steelers have the ball on Tennessee's 27. James Washington nearly fumbles it away, but now you've got the roughing the passer call. It's actually enforced. You have a very odd set of plays here that ends up happening as well. Deonte Johnson with the false start sets them back. They end up with 2nd and 12, and then Ben tries to find James Washington to no avail. So they don't get any type of first down yardage here. They don't get a touchdown, which would have been very nice, but they tied a game 13-all. Okay, let's see if they can hang in here. As you mentioned, Chargers, Vikings games. Let's see what happens. And Ryan Tannehill, after a series of plays here, ends up getting picked off. This is Taco Charlton coming off the edge, bats the ball in the air. Joe Schobert with the awareness. It's about time because Joe Schobert has been known as one of these inside linebackers that tends to somehow come up with a splash play, and they finally get one of these plays. These are the type of plays that have been missing all season long, so it was nice to see them do this against a quality opponent. They get the ball at the 31. The only thing I'm begging for here is that the Steelers don't concede any yards here that put Chris Boswell out of field goal range, which, by the way, his missed field goal, the reason I glossed over it, come on, 56 yards in the open end of Heinz Field.
Right.
That's but no one's making that. It's Justin Tucker probably struggle. I think was 56 actually. Is that the record at Heinz, or was it 55 or 54? These guys
I think it's 56.
It might be 56, but it's into the other end, and it took forever for somebody to kick it that far. 50-yarders are anything but a given, and the wind was whipping yesterday a little bit too. So,
I'll backtrack just a split second. You were talking about Kern punting, and I don't know if it's necessarily game ball worthy, but it was super nice to see on the only 3 punts that the Titans gave that Ray had a small, nice return on each one of them, 11, 11, and 17 for them. It was nice to see just either not going 0 yards or backwards. It was nice to get a couple of yard lines right up, and one of them actually ended up helping. And so it was nice to see him actually getting a couple small returns.
Yeah, special teams, man. I think Ray is going to break one. And that could be a difference maker when you're talking about the last 3 games. He's been sniffing around. The Steelers haven't had a return for a while. It could happen.
Could have happened today, but the Steelers defense just got turnover after turnover after turnover, and the Titans didn't even get a chance to punt the ball the rest of the game.
Yeah, absolutely true. And the Titans end up turning it over again. This one was fumbled and recovered by T.J. Watt. At this point, you're just expecting him to hold decapitated heads or scalps or skulls or something, because he's just out there like some type of madman, just terrorizing everyone. Steelers still don't get anything done. This is actually a 3-and-out. Najee Harris ends up losing some yards here. We're trying to run the ball. They go with Najee first. He gets 6. They go with him again. He loses 5. Short little pass. Deonte Johnson picks up only 4 yards. So it goes from the Tennessee 35 to only net them about 5 yards on 4 plays. Boswell kicks a 48-yard field goal. The Steelers have the lead. And hold on a second. I got to go back to the interception play, I believe, after the tie was after Renegade was played. So I made a comment about someone that said,
it was
more than one person, said that Renegade should be retired. And I'm like, no, Renegade doesn't go anywhere. So still lives on. Curse of Myron Cope as well. Referenced as well, because it was all week was Mike Vrabel and his and company, and I actually didn't really pay attention. They all stood on the Steelers logo, like he gathered everyone to stand on the Steelers logo at the beginning, like before the game kicked off, during the warm-ups, and it's just like, man, you're coming into here, and I don't know, do you need this extra motivation? Like, this is a team this is a wounded animal. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're cornered, and now they're going to bite. Like, do you have to give them anything else? And don't you know, Myron, rest in peace, is sitting somewhere just waiting to go and get you.
Yeah, right.
A double yoy
happens every time.
So the Steelers, the 48-yard field goal puts them up 19-13, and one darn touchdown there. It still doesn't happen. There wasn't much of an offensive output. They don't have 200-some yards. We go into this whole long series with about 4.5 minutes left. It ends with the Joe Haden tackle that we started the show with in the terrible spot. So I want to look ahead, but I think we'll try and get a pregame in, even though it is holiday season and we're all busy and running around like nuts. It's also, if I don't, it's just because I don't really want to go doom and gloom and think about what could happen in Kansas City with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. But I'll take this victory. If they're going to drop a game going forward and still have hopes of making the playoffs and being above 500, this is the one that goes. This is the odd man out. You got to win the 2 that are in the division, regardless of what happens in Kansas City. I still don't think they can afford to lose against the Ravens or Browns, and I'm not sure that this is. We just talked about punt, less than 200 yards of offense. Defense has got to get 4 turnovers to make this happen. I still don't think this is the team that, is going to rip off 4 in a row, starting with this Titans win, unfortunately. So we'll see.
No, I agree. It's especially with the way the Chiefs have been playing recently. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row, and they've looked like the Chiefs of the last couple of years as well, and it really doesn't help that you're going into Kansas City. If it was at Pittsburgh, it'd be a little bit of a different story, but I mean, the only way Pittsburgh, if you don't get to do some sort of pregame podcast, was like you said, all of that's the way the Titans game went was turnovers. It was just 4-0 in favor of the Steelers, and the Chiefs. It's been a minute, but they are turnover prone, and that's the way you just take the ball out of Mahomes' hand, who has been a very rocky season to say the least, but not as of recent. They have been not only winning, but then recently winning by a lot too. So it's a bit scary, but like you said, going into those AFC North opponents where it's just literally an entire game between all 4 teams. Yes, the Kansas City games matters to get just another win, but really it's the Browns and the Ravens are going to be the most important games for sure.
Yeah, and Kansas City off the kind of mini bye, they played on Thursday, a division opponent, so that game was close in a shootout, overtime, 34-28. Here's the other reason why I bring up tiebreakers. How many overtime games have there been in the NFL this year? My goodness.
Right.
There's a couple like every week. It's absolutely insane. So we'll try.
The Ravens could have had 2 more. The Ravens could have added 2 to that.
Yeah, let's talk about coaching and decisions and whether Tomlin's a dummy or whatever, like Harbaugh defending that decision again. I'm going to bring this up just real quick, and I think it's a good point. And we were talking about this in the back rooms too. So his justification for going for 2 to try and go up a point over the Packers yesterday was that Aaron Rodgers would get the ball back with about 40 seconds and one timeout, which we all know that's dangerous. Aaron Rodgers, usually Big Ben in that same game-winning conversation. There's a few legendary players like that. Obviously, Tom Brady gets in that conversation, or John Elway, or guys like that. If you tie the game, are you not in the same situation? like it's the same situation. And we're talking about Mason Crosby, who is a very shaky kicker that they have been loyal to for whatever reason. Maybe he's got blackmail on, I don't know. They don't even really have an owner. They have like a collective or whatever, shareholders with Green Bay. But I didn't understand that. I mean, it's just I think his cojones get a little too big there. He's talking about his defense not being able to stop Rodgers. But how bad is that? Talking about demoralizing for this team, for the Ravens, that is. You go for fourth down play and you don't get it. And this was Todd Haley talking about this the other day on NFL radio, of all people. He says, how demoralizing is that? You don't see guys holding their heads up high if they don't get a 2-point conversion that can win a game, or convert it on 4th and 1, and you're going for it and being aggressive. It's not really a morale boost. You know what I mean? It's a failure. And guys are going with their heads down and looking at the ground, walking off the field, and that's kind of where they're at as they keep dropping these games and falling out of this position. You might want to be this aggressive, but your analytics, I'm sorry, maybe the Steelers game, because there's like no time left, it makes a little more sense, but you're still giving the ball back to Rodgers regardless. You want to go up a point. I think you play the time there. You got to take your risks there instead of just, okay, well, we didn't get the 2-point conversion, and now they just get to take a knee and win the game anyways. Like, at least give your defense a chance. So now, not only did you crap on your offense, I think you're crapping on your defense at the same time. Not to mention, let's say something happens and there's a turnover, or they do get a 3-and-out somehow. You have Justin Tucker, who is the best kicker in the league. Like, I doubt there's any Ravens fans listening, but to dump some of the dirt on them, they deserve it. The bus backs over them, and then you pull it back forward, beep, 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 and then do it again, because that's like 2 out of the last 3 weeks. I think that wasn't necessarily gutsy, but it's cost them. It's cost them their position, and I don't know that they could afford to be that aggressive when they have all the injuries that they've had. And he's using that as his excuse for being aggressive, which I think is even like doubling down on making bad decisions there. But
especially when their schedule hasn't and won't get any easier when they've gone Browns, Steelers, Browns, Packers, Bengals, Rams, Steelers. Like, that's a tough schedule. You got to try and get everything you can, and it's like, really, to gamble with 2 straight games, and now they're on a 3-game losing streak. I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped at least 2 out of the last 3, and they could potentially stay completely, because like you guys talked about, and I've been a proponent, at least in the back channels, of just how many games the Ravens maybe should not have won this year. It's kind of coming back to get them. They used up all their goodwill, and it's like, there's a very good chance that it could be the Bengals, then Browns or Steelers potentially getting up at the division at the end of the season. So,
yeah, and those Bengals they're there. I would have liked to have seen them lose, but it didn't happen. They're both at 8-6, and they face each other in Cincinnati, and Cincinnati has already beat the tar out of the Ravens already in their own building. And you got to look, if you're the Ravens, you're looking at this schedule now like, we lost to the Bengals and we've lost to the Steelers already. You know what I mean? Now you got to go on the road and you got to face them on the 41-17. They lost. The Ravens did to the Bengals in Baltimore, and now you got to go on the road and see what you could do. And it'll be interesting. And the Bengals also get the Chiefs as well as the Browns too. So it's just
Bengals are the same schedule as the Steelers, just in different orders.
Yeah,
for all that, Ravens, Chiefs, Browns is the end of their schedule.
Yep, practically the same thing. Well, Noah, hey, thanks for joining me once again. Happy holidays if I don't talk to you before then.
Sure. I don't want to, wrapping up the episode, are we going to wade into the waters of potential? We've got more games on the docket scheduled for after this podcast comes out, if we want to wade into those waters, or we just cross our fingers that things
let's
happen as
count
planned.
Our chickens before they hatch. I want to see what happens with the rest of the AFC North as well. So, yeah,
I just hope, hoping that our games stay as planned as when the time happens.
Yep, absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for joining me once again, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I know we're up against it, a little long-winded on both ends here, but we had a lot of things to say about you people. And this will be coming back, too, because Festivus is supposed to be the 23rd. So anyways, my name's Joe. His name's Noah. Until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.